Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Strength and Knowledge podcast. I'm very, very excited to bring to you somebody who I met a little over 10 years ago while I was going through PT school. He was putting up with me and a bunch of my teammates as the athletic trainer for the team that I was on in the National Lacrosse League. We knew him a little bit more as Lobs or Lobber, but his name is Stephen Lobsinger, and honestly, just really excited to bring you on today, Steve. It's been forever. I know that the pandemic and just everything that you've been going through has been pretty crazy in Canada over the past year, much like everybody else. But nonetheless, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate you taking time on your day to chat.
Absolutely. So for you are how do I say this? Dual country credentialed AT, right? You're able to function as a trainer in Canada and in the United States. And one of the things that has been unique over the past year is that the essential tag on athletic trainers, say in the United States, is a little bit different in Canada. Can you talk a little bit just about how that's been challenging for you? Can you talk a little bit just kind of about the credentialing process in the different countries, and then what your past year has been like?
Yeah, so I went to school in Canada at Sheridan College. It was a 3-year diploma program. After I was done there, and a couple years later, I went down to the US, and I was able to sit for the NATA BOC national exam. Thankfully, we have a mutual recognition agreement in between Canada and the States that allows Canadians to go down to the States and sit for the US exam. Very similarly, Americans can come north and sit for the Canadian exam as long as they've done all of their schooling in the States and met the same requirements. I did have a little bit of an issue. A slight difference in between Canada and the States. Up north, we've got 1,200 hours, volunteer hours that we have to put in on the field and in the clinic. And in the US, it's actually 1,500 hours, so 300 hours more. So I had to provide documentation from the clinic that I was working at after I graduated, just to show that I put in those additional 300 hours. But for the most part, just some very subtle differences in how we do things here versus in the States. There's a little bit more focus on litigation. There's a little bit more focus on administration or passing out of non-prescription medication that we have up here. We're actually not allowed to give out any medication at all in Canada. It has to be a delegated task in which a physician delegates you to be able to, hang on to and administer that medication to individuals. So just some slight differences, north versus south. Up here, we've had some challenges as unregulated health professionals in what we're able to do during this pandemic or not do during this pandemic. We just kind of finished up a month and a half lockdown that ended February 16th, where all unregulated health professionals had to close up shop for, like I say, a month and a half, 2-month period, while we waited for the numbers to subside a little bit before we were able to go back to work here.
That's so interesting that it's unregulated in Canada. A profession that is dealing with acute injuries. You're a first responder. Are there anything is there a movement to change that? Is there anything being discussed? Why is that the way that it is?
We're moving towards regulation through athletic therapy at the moment. Unfortunately, it's kind of at a bit of a glacier's pace. It's something that we've been working on since, well before I graduated, and we're so very, very close right now, which is really exciting for the profession moving forward. A lot of it had to do with numbers. It had to do with finances. It has to do with, the ability to grant us a regulatory college, which quite frankly, they've been unwilling to do up until this point. So it's been quite a challenge. And it actually involved us partnering with the kinesiologists in Ontario, which in and of itself is very unique. So there's hope that athletic therapists will be given a specialty or a class underneath the College of Kinesiologists that will separate us and delineate us from kinesiologists and yet still give us that same protection as regulated health professionals going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer. And when you say college, you need to have a college. Is that, I'm thinking Simon Fraser University, UVic, and that's only because I lived out in Vancouver for a summer. But
so a little bit of again, slight difference in language. When we talk about a college, it's a government-regulated body that kind of oversees our practice that we're beholden to, and the premise behind that college is that they protect the public. So we have, the College of Physicians, the College of Massage Therapists here that, like I say, oversee that profession, set ethics, set code of conduct, and what you are and aren't able to do in your practice, basically ensuring that the public is kept safe when they go and see that particular practitioner or professional.
Got it. I mean, I can think of the various things, like on a state level, it's like, all right, well, we have our Maryland Department of Health, where you have, you take your jurisprudence exam through there. Yeah. Then we have our more like professional organization, which leads advocacy efforts, right? The APTA. Yes. And then you have NAPTE, which kind of runs the examination process. So it's a lot more complex sometimes, even as I'm sitting here hearing you talk about it. But I mean, just the fact that you're like a first responder. I mean, what do, not to always put you in a category of like first responder, but with paramedics, but like what do paramedics do in Canada? Is there something that's already in place there? Is that
so it's interesting that you say that. Actually, the paramedics don't actually have their own college in Ontario as well, so they're kind of in the same situation. Yeah, it's really unique, and to make it even more complicated and confusing, every province is slightly different here. Like massage therapists are regulated in Ontario, but they're unregulated in Manitoba, I believe, which again is just very unique.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't seem to make sense for me. And no. I mean, you already brought up the word litigation in the United States, but the fact that, I mean, if you were down here and you were doing an unlicensed you were unlicensed and you were the first person to an injury or a car accident or somebody having a cardiac event, I could only imagine some of the problems that you would run into. I mean, that's just, I'm shocked. I'm almost shocked. I know there's a lot of positives to the Canadian healthcare system, but that seems to be something that kind of got lost at some point.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest differences in between Canada and the States. We're not quite as litigious here as
too happy.
To the south, yeah.
Right? You mean ambulance chasers don't exist in Canada? Is that what
they do, but not. They're not on every street corner here.
Right, and they're not as successful, I can imagine either. Yeah. Right. So outside of ATC, I mean, you've gone through an osteopathic program, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the differences and then similarities to your osteopathic program from Canada's standpoint to what you are familiar with it being in the United States?
Yeah. So in the States, it's I would say more of a medical type program where, you can prescribe medications, you can, send for x-rays and other diagnostic testing. Osteopathic physicians in the US really are acting more as a physician type role, as a very broad generalization. In Canada, we're considered manual osteopathic practitioners. So hands-on only, really. I'm not allowed to prescribe medication. I can't send anyone for x-rays or other diagnostic testing. I'm not allowed to diagnose injuries here. So very, very different. We work as more of a PT type position where we are seeing individuals in the clinic more so for pain management, for return to play, return to sport, helping them to recover from their injury, helping them to recover from surgery, from car accidents, but strictly from a hands-on manual technique point of view. So we do craniosacral techniques, we do organ and visceral work, we do joint mobilizations and myofascial work. But then, like I say, leave all of that medical stuff aside, if you will. So
Yeah.
like true diagnosing of injuries and conditions. And
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's just interesting. Once again, I mean, you have
yeah,
a very, very big difference between how the profession is presented to
yes.
consumers, right, to patients, how it is regulated. What was the schooling like for that? I mean, was that something longer period of time, shorter period of time in terms of, I mean, I imagine it's shorter than what they go through in the States, at least, right?
Yeah, so I went to the Canadian College of Osteopathy, which is the oldest osteopathic program in Canada. And it was, at the time, it was a 5-year part-time program where we were doing one course a month, and each course was, 4 to 5 days, depending on what it was that we were studying. We went to school from September until end of April or end of May, again, kind of depending on the year. So it was pretty involved. We just, like I said, we really just went through the whole body from the head to the toes, broke everything down. So it's pretty in depth, pretty involved.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. That seems like a very, very nice compliment to your ability to be a first responder as well. Unfortunately, over the past year, as you know, we kind of touched on it briefly, but you were unable to work, and I should say, do the things that you're normally accustomed to. I think before before we jumped on the podcast here, you said that you were down about 75 to 80% of your
Yeah,
normal with regards to work. Can you share just a little bit of kind of what the past year has been like for you? I know that you've also shared with me some just challenges with regards to your mental health over the past year. What's that been?
yeah.
What's it all been like?
Oh man, it's been a tough go on a number of levels. I think as a male, we have this self drive in us to want to be able to perform, want to be able to carry this financial burden, to be able to provide for our families. And it was a huge hit to the ego not to be able to work, knowing that, I am able to work, I want to be able to work, and more importantly, want to be able to help people. But to not be able to do that was, I mean, it was heartbreaking. Up here in Ontario, we've had 2 separate kind of lockdown periods. We got shut down kind of mid-March until mid-June. Pretty much everything completely except for all, as essential services, grocery stores, gas stations, that type of thing. Everything else was shut down. Otherwise, it was really a ghost town for that 3-month period. We thankfully the federal government was able to help subsidize us, and we were given, I think it was $2,000 a month in government subsidy to help us get through that time. So over that 3-month period, my income was zero. I just wasn't seeing people. I wasn't able to see them. There were some that were able to do telehealth consults, but unfortunately, doing the work I do, it wasn't really translating. I didn't really feel comfortable with it. My patients weren't really looking for that type of service from me. So that was a pretty significant hit that way. And then you're sitting at home and you're watching your bank account get a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller every year, or every week rather. And at that point in time, we weren't really sure when we were going to go. We weren't sure when we were going to go back to work and what that would look like. And then when we finally went back to work kind of mid-June, it was great. It was such a relief, and you realize why, I realized why I do what I do. And it's because I really and truly do. I love it. I love being able to help people. And then unfortunately our numbers were getting too high, kind of end of December, and we had another month and a half shutdown. I was able to practice a little bit as a registered kinesiologist, but unfortunately there weren't very many patients that had coverage for that. Wasn't able to bill as a manual osteopath or a certified athletic trainer, so my billing was dramatically reduced over that period. So again, it weighs on you, and you kind of have these little goals and expectations that you set for yourself in terms of where you want to be financially and how you want things to progress, and all of a sudden everything, you kind of slam the emergency brake and have to reevaluate things and reprioritize where and how you're spending money, and kind of delay those goals a little bit to kind of match where you're at. And it's a lot to kind of to wrap your brain around, on top of the fact that because of some of these restrictions, and limiting indoor gatherings, social get-togethers, not able to see friends, not able to see family as much, and it weighs on your mental health, and it's a lot to process, and it kind of it brings back, unfortunately, some of these old demons in a way. And
yeah, I mean, I can only empathize with you, because I'm in my head, I'm thinking, didn't quite have 75 to 80%, but we went 40 to 60% in terms of a decline for a considerable amount of time. And you're sitting here going, oh, the PPP, it's great. Oh, it'll allow me to keep all my people on. And then you're like, this thing's not going away. My PPP money's gone. And then you sit there and you go, oh, well, this is the emergency reserves we had in the bank account. And then you're seeing the emergency reserves for the company start to chip away, and you're like, oh my goodness, well, this can't last that much longer. And I remember saying, this can't last that much longer for I don't know how many months. And then the end of the year comes and you're like, oh shoot, like our emergency funds that we came into the year with, well, yeah, there's not a whole lot really there. So I mean, just the mental strain there. I think that hearing from multiple people, and obviously there's you can read it just about anywhere, just the connection between financial strain and stress and mental health obviously can be very, very challenging. So I can definitely say that I can, what you're going through, I can understand it entirely. And I think outside of just the financial side, like you're talking about self-fulfillment. You've been somebody, you've always worked very hard, right? You've connected with people, you put a lot of time and energy into your craft. You're in that kind of higher rung of Maslow's hierarchy, and you're working on things that fulfill you. And there's a certain amount of autonomy that you've had to, continually create things in your life that you generally enjoy doing and that fill up your cup. And this past year chipped away at a lot of that stuff for a lot of different people. You feel like, you lost control, so to speak. I remember sitting there going, I was working so hard and things were going so well. And I feel like somebody literally just pulled the rug out from under me. And I'm not quite sure how many rungs back that I've gone now. And the uncertainty, and we're still sitting here. And I do think, at least with some of the vaccines and stuff, that, numbers and stuff like that, that generally we're at least seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But I can definitely, relate to some of the challenges that you're going through. I mean, we only went through one lockdown, so to speak, in our area, but we've gone through varying levels of restriction. And it's like, even when you're open, after the restrictions are gone, the consumer confidence is not there. People are like, can I go into that place and actually be safe? Oh no, I'm going to wait. Right.
Well, and that's the thing, here, I mean, we're telling people to, stay at home and not go out and not socially gather and all of that. And then, like I say, the government opens things up, and then, go out, but be safe. And there's this hesitation from people about, what can I do? What can't I do? What do they feel comfortable with? And it adds this whole other layer of complexity. And, like I say, as a practitioner, and, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but this kind of loss of identity in a way of, now all of a sudden you've taken this big part of your life away, and, you're not that therapist anymore. You're not that healthcare provider anymore. And it forces you to look in the mirror and reevaluate things.
Yeah. The peeling back of the identity. I was thinking about that just now, where you shed back to, I don't have to do this as much. Well, how can I make the use of my free time? How can I continue to work towards my goals? If I can't practice my craft, I've got to reinvent myself. I've got to pour into other things that I can actually control right now. And that the locus of control, I just keep coming back to as well, like the locus of control, where usually somebody, I feel like I've got a lot of internal locus of control. And this past year, sometimes I just have to sit there and just, all right, that's it. I'm just along for the roller coaster. Just tell me when the ride's over, because there are some things that I have to stop having an emotional attachment to, because I'm getting fired up, or I'm getting too down. So I'm getting too high, too low, instead of kind of functioning in that optimal range. Is that something you've been going through too?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. Those highs and lows, and they're tough to mitigate. Right. And it's funny, just when you think you've gotten things that are under control, something else happens in your life to kind of, either knock you back down a peg or, raise you back up, depending on what's going on.
Absolutely. And you talk about this is kicking your goals down the road, right? It's kicking your goals down the road. Whatever that was a year out, it's probably 2 years out now.
Yeah.
For you, you've talked a little bit about wanting to eventually open up your own place. And I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. And I want to know, what are your barriers to eventually doing your own thing? I imagine some are going to be related to landscape and things going on maybe outside of your control, and then maybe some things that are on your plate that you can control as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think really the biggest rate limiting factor for a number of people, myself included, would be fear. Getting over that fear. It's really kind of funny, actually. You look at the schedule and you see how booked you are, and people are coming in to see you, and they're happy, to be treated by you. You've helped them, but there's still, this little voice in the back of your head of, can I really make it? Can I really be successful, quote unquote, on your own? So fear is definitely a big limiting factor for me. Outside of that, I think the other kind of roadblock right now that I'm having a hard time with is trying to figure out what I want it to look like. And I keep flip-flopping back and forth between two kind of differing designs, if you will. The first of which, being more of an athletic performance type facility, similar to R2P, where you have, a number of different multidisciplinary practitioners working together. You have the strength and conditioning side in the gym, more well-rounded performance enhancement. And then on the flip side of things, I see a little bit more of a serene type clinic, where focusing a little bit more on mental health, focusing more on well-being, on proper diet and nutrition, on self-growth, where, you're bringing in, potentially a psychologist, a nutritionist, obviously manual osteopathy, massage therapy, and a little bit more of a kind of tranquil type clinic. And I find myself, like I say, bouncing back and forth for me. And I see pros and cons to both, and I'm excited about both. And I just can't figure out which one, I truly want to be involved in. So I'm really, really struggling with that, because like I say, both are appealing to me, both are fulfilling to me. I've been working in sport for the last 16 years. And like, I love that environment. I love that desire to push forward and be your best, and always try and break boundaries and barriers, as quickly and as safely as you can. But then I also see the importance of that. Okay, let's tone things down a little bit. Let's focus on self. Let's become grounded. Let's work on all of the little things outside of the clinic as well. Like I say, let's work on a proper diet. Let's work on making sure that we're going out and exercising and just being grateful for what we have. So two different kind of dichotomies there.
That's kind of interesting, because I've only known you in the crazy world of lacrosse. And it's no secret, lacrosse guys and hockey guys are a little bit more wild than a lot. So
for sure.
me picturing you in a tranquil environment, it's a little bit challenging.
I know. I really gotta watch what I say. I can't swear.
What's that?
I said I really have to watch what I say. I can't be swearing.
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm sitting here going, you tranquil? Really? Okay. All right. You might have to have a room where you can kind of like let loose a little bit, maybe create a wall between these two different places. But I mean, my only recommendation is, maybe focusing on a niche or an area that you're very, very familiar with. I know the pipeline that you have from a lacrosse standpoint, and I would be hard pressed to think you have as much connectivity somewhere else. But then again, I mean, I don't obviously don't know everything that you're doing on a regular basis, but I imagine if you were talking about the lacrosse community in the area in which you live and work, it's probably something where people would probably get behind you and want to support you and do certain things to be like, oh, hey, yeah, Lobber's doing his own thing now. Let's go check it out, Yeah. So I think there's something to be said about the relationships that you've created. I know that's obviously something that you value and you put a lot of time and energy into. And I would call that the social capital piece. I mean, where's your social capital? Yeah. Where are your touch points where people are automatically going to know who you are, what you do, and how you solve their problems? I know a lot of people are going to say it's a who you know world. No, it's a who knows you. And there's way more people in that world that know you, right? Yeah. So, and if you ever want to start up R2P, Toronto, right?
Amen.
We can have that. We can have that conversation, man. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. I miss my lacrosse world. I'm not getting as much of it. I'm out of the coaching world now. For the people that don't know, that are listening to this, I played a couple years in the National Lacrosse League, which is where I met Lobber here, and I was coaching for a very, very long period of time. I actually ended my coaching career during the pandemic, and it's something that I still sit here and just appreciate a lot of the relationships, a lot of the connectivity. I would be lying to say that the early success of Rehab to Reform wasn't largely related to the relationships that I created lacrosse-wise in my local community here with parents, with coaches, and with kids. So that's the only reason why I'm like, hey man, don't forget all those people that are in your corner. So outside of that, I mean, any other barriers that you see? I mean, being able to be successful, are there any things that are challenging for healthcare practitioners in the province of Ontario? Anything external that creates, like for us, I mean, direct access can be very, very challenging with regards to navigating people's entry point. It can change marketing plans. Is there anything like that is unique about the area in which you live?
I think a lot of those challenges are fairly similar, north versus south. Obviously getting financing to be able to, open up your place, can be a little bit challenging. One thing I thought was really interesting. I was reading this book called Good to Great a little while ago. One of the things they made note of that was kind of sticking with me and that I'd like to kind of bring forth. One of the things they talk about, everyone writes this to-do list, all of the things you should do, whether it's, in your life, in your business, in your relationships, but oftentimes you don't want to talk about what you shouldn't do. And I just found that really interesting of creating this, do not do list. And so, whether that's, something that, whether it's a mindset that you want to try and avoid of, a confidence point of view, let's say, so it's, changing your perspective, changing your narrative. Those are some of the biggest things I think that limit a lot of people, like I say, myself included. Other limitations to business. I mean, it's competition, there aren't very many multidisciplinary facilities that have the training associated with them here. There are a few, but so there's definitely a need and a want for it here. But yeah, it's just like I say, just having the courage to take that chance, take that risk, and make it happen and not look back.
No, definitely, I'm with you. Sometimes, and I'm hearing a little bit of risk aversion. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Man, I touched
that's
the button.
definitely fair. Yeah, for sure.
All right. All right. All right. On your not to do, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be as risk averse, right?
Yeah.
Your Jim Collins good to great moment.
Yeah.
And you're reading Napoleon Hill right now too, right?
I am. Yeah. I just started with it not that long ago. I'd read the majority of it before and then kind of put it away and got out of that mindset. And then with this little bit of a break, I started reading it again, and a lot of it, I mean, I don't think there's anything kind of groundbreaking in there. It's just kind of patterning the best behavior, trying to be your best self, as they say, and not giving up on your goal. And my biggest takeaway so far in that is being emotionally invested in what you do, whatever it is, whatever subject, whatever relationship, whatever business, that you're emotionally invested in what you're doing, and then you truly care for it deep down. Don't just do something for, well, I mean, you can do things for fun, but if you really truly want to see something grow and truly want to see it blossom, you have to truly invest yourself in it. And
yeah, it's not that it's not fun, it's that you're not being casual about it. There are some intentional and more calculated efforts associated with whatever you can have fun. I mean, I have some days where I absolutely love work, but I'm still being intentional and calculated because I want to get better at the things that I'm doing every day. So
yes,
is that fair?
That's very fair.
Yeah. So, hey, let's wrap this up a little bit. What are some things that you're looking forward to in 2021?
Oh man, I'm to be very honest with you, I'm itching to get back and start working lacrosse. So
NLL got canceled. For anybody that doesn't know, who's listening, the NLL got canceled this year.
Yeah, I miss the boys. I miss the locker room. I miss the laughing and joking around. So I'm really, really excited to get back to Rochester, get back on the road, see the fans, see the fellas, and that's probably one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to this year. And just pushing myself and what else can I say? I'm looking forward to making some brisket.
Think about it. I'm going to interject now and say the number one thing that you said that you were looking forward to was lacrosse related. So if you create a facility that doesn't at least tie in something to do with lacrosse, I'm fair. Sorry, but you're not going to have as much fun doing it.
That's fair.
Okay. That was almost a trick question there. I got you. All right. For anybody out there, I mean, young professional, you've been doing this for 16 years.
Yeah.
What are some just parting words of wisdom that you like to leave people with?
I think the biggest thing for me is always, treat people how you want to be treated. No matter what you do, but particularly in this profession, if you're an athletic trainer or aspiring athletic trainer, and you've injured yourself in the past, and you went to a particular therapist, and they did something to you that just didn't resonate with you, remember that, whatever that might be. That might be the person that you pulled your hamstring and you went and saw someone, and all they did was ultrasound and IFC and ice and sent you on your way, and you went, man, I don't really feel any different. I don't feel like you connected with me as a person. Remember that, hold on to that, and change it, and treat people how you want to be treated. Make that emotional connection to them. Your best is always going to fluctuate. Some days are going to be better than others, and some days you're going to be able to do more than others. So don't beat yourself up about that, but every day try and make sure that you are performing at your best and treating people how you want to be treated. That to me, I think is the single biggest thing to remember in this profession. Treat people kindly, treat them with respect, and put your heart and soul into the work that you're doing, whatever it might be.
Man, I love that. And I think it goes for just about anything, any environment, any of the relationships, interactions we have on a regular basis. To put a bow on today, if people want to connect with you, they want to reach out to you. I know we've been going back and forth more on Twitter, but are there other places outside of Twitter? And don't forget to also leave them your handle on Twitter as well.
Twitter's probably the best bet, to be honest with you. And my Twitter is at @Lobsinger. So SLOBSINGER.
And you're not on Instagram yet, huh?
I am, but I haven't really started utilizing it yet. So maybe there's another goal for 2021. Getting on Instagram, putting myself out there a little bit more.
It is so hard. What do I have? There's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's Clubhouse, there's TikTok. I cannot keep track of everything.
Neither can I.
Overwhelming. So you're not the only one. Well, Steve, I appreciate you coming on today and being just honestly very transparent about what was a tough year and sharing about your passion, which is sports and lacrosse, which I hope you decide to put your time, energy, and effort into with the place of your own. But good luck nonetheless. It was great catching up, and I really appreciate you making time today.
Thanks very much for your time as well. It's awesome.